Hi everyone, welcome to Hedgehog Holidays, our first session. And today I'm going to be showing you in this hour how to do some really fun watercolor concepts. So we developed this range at Maker Forte and we have some really fun sets. There's slimline splashes for those of you who love this new slimline trend. We have easy watercolor that comes in some really fun shapes. We have our easy winter watercolor scenes, watercolor witch, ornamental watercolor, and then this one here is really fun because there's a stamp and a die in it, and you can stamp it out with watercolor, you can stamp it out solid black, and you can stencil. So lots of different ways you can use this one. And I have a few samples to share with you. This is a Christmas one I did, and you can see these are colors that typically would make a lot of mud, but it actually comes out really pretty. So you just have to be a little bit more careful with your blending. I'm going to show you how to do that. And then this one here I did, and then I foiled the sentiment. This is our simple sayings. They come like this. You get a full sheet of black, you get a full sheet of white in the large sentiments, and then you get a half and half, black and white, of them in a smaller version. So lots of different ways to use them. And all I did with this, I'll show you some tips and tricks, but you can see this is one that I did. And this one I distressed the foil, so rather than it being super shiny, I distressed it a little bit. And on this one, I just kept it shiny. This one is like a dark gold. So they're really easy to do. All you have to do to foil these, because they're printed with toner, is take your anti-static tool and you just go over whatever sentiment you've got. It just removes like any toner dust and those kinds of things. And then take a piece of foil. I cut out the one I want. Take a piece of foil, put it through your laminator, and off we go. So if you have any questions, of course, as always, you can drop them in the comments below. I will be here at the end of this video, and we'll be back live to the craft room that I'll be unpacking. And you can ask me any questions. If you want me to show you anything, you can let me know. And of course, Ali and I are here in the chat beside you as well. You do have the Maker Forte coupon code to use this weekend. And there's going to be some exclusive bundles we're going to share with you over the weekend too. So let's dive into these projects. So I'm going to show you first of all, this is one using that easy winter watercolor scenes. You can see that's the green and the yellow. So for this technique, you can use any dye inks. So I'm going to be using the Wayne D. Vecchi Make Art Blendables. I've got a stack of them here, but you can use distress inks. Hybrid inks kind of work, but not as well. But anything that is dye-based, Lawn Fawn, Catherine Pooler, any of those, they work great. And we'll start off by showing you a couple of different ways you can use these. So you can start off with a beautiful solid, and Ali will be using this one as well. I think this one was in your kit, so you can try that out too. So if I put this one down, lift, and we'll just take, let's see what colors we've got here. I'll do her in Poppy. So you can just use these as a regular solid stamp. They make a beautiful background. So you could do maybe like a little note card, or you could do one, cut her out. So here's my witch. And the other fun thing about in this kit is, in this stamp set, you get this really pretty Happy Halloween sentiment, which I absolutely adore. So we could put that over the top. Maybe you could do place cards if you like to do Halloween parties, or if you like to do little treat bags, these would be perfect. You can take, this is just some amalgam. And I'm going to stamp it twice just to make sure it's nice and bold, or you could heat emboss. So you can see, you can use them just like a really pretty solid, I mean, that looks absolutely awesome. So there's one way you can use them and mount them up into your project. I'll move this over here. And then I'm going to give this a little bit of a clean up. You can see a sneak peek of our cleaning cloth that's coming in a couple of months' time. They are eco-friendly, biodegradable. They're actually printed with black. The creativity is my forte. And it's really nice to use. It's got this little bit of like tooth in it to actually like get into your stamps and clean them. And it will come with our stamp cleaner, which is amazing because if you've ever used a red rubber stamp, you'll know that sometimes, or the photopolymers, that they get a little bit stained. Well, we were doing an experiment to make sure that this didn't, harm your stamps anyway, and I soaked my red stamp in it, and after 24 hours it was clear again, which I thought was pretty awesome. So next up, I'm going to show you how the watercolor, watercolor concept works. So we're going to use ornamental here. And we're going to just take one of our ornaments and we'll pick it up. And let's do some green, and I'm going to put some blue down. So you really can choose any colors you want and mix them up. Just think about, if something's going to cause a little bit of mud, those kinds of things. I try not to put too many harsh edges in. You'll see I just kind of tap all over the place. Then you're going to take a spray bottle filled with water. I've got one over here. And the more you spritz it, the more of the watercolor effect you get. I like to do 2 to 3 spritzes just so it beads up a little bit, but you don't want it, if you pick this up, it's going to bleed all over the stamp. So you'll kind of find what works. And then you're going to do the smush. And I like to kind of push it down a few times and lift it up. And it just kind of makes it bleed a little bit more. And then you end up with this beautiful watercolor, and it's absolutely perfect. And I did nothing. So that's a really great way to use it. And so what I was trying to show you is another way you can use the watercolor stamps. Of course, you can use them as a solid, and you'll be seeing that in our kaleidoscope powders class. And what you can do is spritz with water like this. You just turn this so I can see. And then you just take the water and you pop down like this. And you can then take a watercolor pen. I just have some aqua flows here. And I'm going to add a little bit more water on here. And you want to build it up so that you have a nice wet outline. And then what you're going to find is the ink is only going to go where there's water. So it will bleed out to where there's water. You can add multiple colors. I'm just going to the side. I actually overstamped this one a little bit, but that's okay. And so you can see how it creates this cool technique. But because there's no water outside of here, it's not going to bleed any further, and then you can drop in other colors, metallics, all those kinds of things. So you're going to see lots of techniques during the weekend of different ways to use these stamps. So that's the ornamental. Now let me show you how I did these, because they're really simple but gorgeous. And I used this piece here. So this is one of our slimline card fronts. It's pre-cut down for those slimline cards. I'm going to use slimline splashes. I love these. This is a brand new one, so this is my studio copy. Now, of course, you could do a couple of things. Actually, let's try this. We're going to take this one here, and I'm going to do one at the top, one at the bottom, and then I'm going to end up putting this one in the middle. And then, of course, you could add a sentiment on this too. Or we could do it widthways. You can do all sorts of fun things. And the reason I developed these is because I am not a great watercolor artist by any means necessary. So to get this nice and even, I'm going to use my Misty. You can, of course, use an acrylic block too. I'm going to center this where I want it compared to the top and sides. And then I'm going to show you a fun trick. And then we're going to take some lovely colors. So let's do some red. And some blue, which of course is going to make a lovely purple color. And add a little bit of this poppy in there as well. And then we're going to give it a nice spritz with water so it beads, but it's not, if I do this, it's not too sloppy. And then we just stamp out. As I say, I like to do it a couple of times because it lets the water move around nicely. And if you get too much of one up here, you can grab yourself a little cloth and pick it out, or you can take a paintbrush and move it around. but there is one of my watercolors. And then we're going to clean up. Then I'm just going to take my same cardstock, turn it around, put it again in that top right hand corner. I'm going to grab out some distress inks. I have my little collection of distress cubes over here. And this time I'm going to go with the red. Let's see what we've got here. We've got red. This one doesn't even have a cap on it. We'll go with some peacock feathers. A little bit of spun sugar in there too. And so we're going to, I like to start with my lightest, but I don't worry too much about contamination. I've never had an issue with that. Then we're going to touch in just some little bits. I'm not convinced this is red. It doesn't look very red. It looks more like soot, but we'll just make it work because you really can use any colors for this. We'll add more of the peacock feathers to balance out any of the darkness in there. But again, you'll see that you can mix up any color. Spritz, and we're going to place it down and lift a couple of times. The other tool that works really well that we're coming out with is this new Stamper Out tool. It has the Maker Forte in the top here. This is just a prototype, and so you really can kind of smush your inks and things around and get that perfect watercolor effect. I mean, how gorgeous is that? It's like a smoky sky for a Halloween card or something like that. Looks great. I'm just going to call this my sampler, but you could use it as a birthday card, use their favorite colors, those kinds of things. And then in the middle here, we're going to add this. And let's see what colors we'll use. We might as well just use a little bit of everything in this card. We can do some orange, we have some yellow. If I can find a red, that would be great. Maybe I'll just use the poppy that's in here. So again, I'm going to go with some yellow. Oh, that's not yellow either. That's a blue of some kind. And so we'll go with some poppy. You can see these have got all jumbled up in the move, but it's okay. And I'm going to add some smidgens of orange in, just for good measure. Again, make sure I got a good spritz. Take this, stamp it out. Really pretty colors in there. And if you really want some help to smush it, this works great. Give it a second. And then you can lift up and you can see, it kind of looks like a tie-dye. So really pretty in there. And you've got all of those splatters and they're perfect. You don't have to worry about them. Super easy. I love it. It's just an amazing, amazing technique. Now, if you were here for a previous Hedgehog holidays, we had one of these watercolor concepts in our subscription box a while back, and I show Laura Volp's got it, and she did hers slightly differently. She put down one color, spritzed it, let it go, put down one color, spritzed it, let it go. So I'll show you how she did hers too, because you can also try that technique. Then all I did was I trimmed my piece down, added some pretty cardstock, and there's lots of beautiful colors if you haven't seen them. There's this like Stormy Metallic, which is stunning. This is Starlight. It's like a champagne metallic. Eclipse, because you know I love mounting in the black. This one is Rebellion Red, and I'll show you the red I used in a second. This is the Snow Flurries Metallic, which is a gorgeous white metallic. We have Grape. This is Telephone Box. This is lovely. And it's 100-pound weight, so it's really sturdy. And you can see I've mounted it on there. We've got our Perfect Blend. We'll be using a stencil class. British Racing Green that Greg named. English Mustard. This one is Roller Skates. And then this is our regular white cardstock. So these are 110-pound. And this is the slimline card base. Once it's folded up, you can see you can make a card either way. And then they have the matching envelopes. And I mentioned to you how I did the foil sentiment. So we're going to use this slimline card base just because I happen to have, here's a smaller piece we can use. So the technique to use multiple colors, let's choose a different stamp. We'll do the trees. fun one. And this is just another way to do the technique. So you can get different effects just depending on how you want to do it. So I'm going to take this here. We're going to take some yellow first of all. I know this wasn't yellow. And I'm just inking up a little bit of the stamp, spritzing, stamping, and I'm going to use my nice new smushy tool. Give it a second, lift. Then I'm going to wipe off my stamp. We're then going to take some green and I'm going to ink up some different bits of my stamp. Totally random. I have no idea whether I've covered everything at this point. Couple of spritz. Stamp it down. And so you're just going to get a different way that it blends together. You can see I've got almost all my stamp, but I need to add some more. So we'll use, I have some evergreen bough potentially over here if it's the right colour. It looks like it. So I need to do some on here, some here, like so. Make sure it's well spritzed. I have a little bit of a line here that was a bit much compared to what I wanted. In fact, I may have added a bit too much water here, but let's see. We'll take our smushy. So you can see now I'm kind of building it up. It's just a different effect by doing one color at a time as opposed to doing all of them at once. And the nice thing, as you can see, I'm using our 110-pound cardstock, and it doesn't pill or get lots of ripples in it. It'll stand up to everything. You don't just have to use watercolor cardstock. So it's a really great stamp. As I say, we're going to use it later in holidays as well with the Kaleidoscope powders, the Color Hive ink pad. There is a range of Color Hive inks coming from Maker Forte. I got to choose an amazing palette for Maker Forte, 72 colors, and they're broken down into American primaries, ice cream flavors, which are the pastels. We have Telephone Box, which is like your rich regally colors. We have your neons called Turn Back Time, so you'll notice things like Lime Wired, Rah Rah Skirt, Fresh Prints. And then we also have our With a Chance Of, so all of the neutrals are named after weather. And then we also have our skin tone collection, which is called Take a Sip, and it is a complete rainbow of skin tones. So really excited, and they all have a lovely silicone pad. We developed our own ink. It's lovely and thick and opaque, and you can do some really fun techniques. They work great with these watercolor stamps. So drop any comments in the chat down here. I'm gonna hand back over to the studio. You can ask me any questions. I'm happy to show you anything. I have my laminator there, so if you want me to show you how to do a sentiment, we can do one of those too. But I hope you have enjoyed watercolor techniques. You do have some in your kit if you ordered the craft box, and we'll have, of course, that 20% off coupon as part of holidays. So go ahead, grab some, add them to your cart. You can check out as many times as you want over the weekend and use that coupon code. It's not a one-time purchase, and it will also give you a few bonuses in your package. So let's hand back to Ali and I'm happy to answer any questions you've got.